Hi again, everybody. This is Kat Stone, Marketing Director over at BrainSell. Thank you again for joining us for our B2b e-commerce 101 webinar today. I am going to pass the controls over to Kevin Cook, our EVP here at BrainSell, who's going to introduce you to our special guest presenters. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I will send a recording of the webinar and the slide deck out shortly after the meeting in case you would like to review it or share it with anybody else. But in the meantime, let me pass you on over to Kevin. Kevin Cook.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kat. Welcome, everybody. I'm Kevin Cook, Executive Vice President at BrainSell Technology, and we're discussing B2B e-commerce today. I have with me a couple of really excellent guests. I'm very excited to have Yoav Kuttner from ORO. He's the CEO of ORO, and Michael Besilov, also from ORO, VP of Engineering. They're going to help us out with a demo. We're going to discuss e-commerce B2B, some B2C thrown in there too, but we're going to keep it very educational for all of our guests today. We're going to be interactive. There's a capability for you guys in the audience to ask questions, and I really want you to feel free to do that. We're going to try to get to everybody's questions at the end, but rest assured, if we don't get to your question during this webinar, we will answer your questions on one-on-one after the webinar. A little bit about our agenda. We're going to tell you a little bit about who we are so you know what the landscape is like. But then we're going to get right into the discussion of B2B trends and technologies, the things you ought to be digitizing. You know, it may not be obvious. You don't want to put everything into your e-com store. You don't digitize everything. I want to talk a little bit about ORO. ORO is really unique. Really unique. We here at BrainSell have been selling CRM systems for 22 years, and ORO provides some really unique features. We're going to talk about that and how easily it is to implement, and then as promised, we're going to get to the Q&A. So let me tell you a little bit about BrainSell. BrainSell has been, as I said, in the CRM and business consulting space for 22 years. The founder of our company got started because he realized how important business software was to a business and how you can use technology to scale your business without necessarily needing to hire people, or you can automate processes. And that's just grown into so much more, like e-commerce connecting to your CRM, e-commerce connecting to ERP, and what you can do to automate your e-com sale. And for business-to-business customers, e-com can take on an entirely different flavor. We're going to talk about that in a moment. We represent lots of tools, so we like to think that we are non-biased. So as soon as you talk to somebody here at BrainSell, you're going to get the right recommendation, not just the one-trick pony that we sell. If you talk to a vendor of software, maybe the greatest vendor in the world, Salesforce, wonderful company, but they're only selling one product, and we'd like to be non-biased. That last bullet point here, it sounds like a cliche, but it's not. Because we represent lots of tools, we have to focus on consulting before we pick a tool that's right. We have to understand why you're picking what you're picking. So that's a little bit about us. Now I'd like to introduce my partners over at ORO, and they can give us a brief introduction about who they are. So Yoav, Michael, please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about ORO.
Sure. So I'm Yoav Kuttner. I'm co-founder and CEO here at ORO Inc. And in my previous lifetime, I co-founded a company called Magento in the B2C e-commerce space. I was the acting CTO, and I led the product basically since we started that product in early 2007, and then until I left quite shortly after the eBay acquisition. With us, we also have Michael Besilov. He's our VP of Engineering here and actually leading the ORO Commerce project here at ORO. And Michael also came with to us from Magento, where he was the original project manager for the Magento project and led that project for most of the years of the development. And Michael also left shortly after the eBay acquisition and joined ORO to lead us, and we're very happy about that. So a little bit about the company. So we are over 180 people globally. We have commercial offices and product and project management offices in the US. We also have our first subsidiary in Germany to run the German market. And we have dev offices over Europe and in Ukraine, so we have a lot of developers in Europe and some in the US. We actually are backed by our investor, which is Highland Europe, so actually a US company with an investor from Europe, quite unusual in the VC world, but it works for how we operate. And we raised $12 million early last year to kind of fund all this excitement that we are seeing around the ORO products. And that's great. Just a little bit about what we're all about. So we have a lot of experience, actually few tens of years altogether, of working with merchants, working with companies, and understanding that tools are not the same for all of them. We actually understood that people need flexible tools that can do most of the work, but then to finish the job, the last 20–30% that's missing to get the product to work for you, that's where flexibility needs to be built into the products, and that's how we build our products. We love to have a channel, so partners like BrainSell that actually implement and work closely with the vendors, with the merchants that are actually using our products to kind of get it to the finish line. And we focus on creating these kind of flexible platform. Of course, eCommerce is the one we're talking about here. But we have a list of other products, ORO CRM and ORO Platform as well, which we can actually talk about in a different time. The one thing about how we build products, we rely on open source technologies and release our products as open source. So even if you're an enterprise customer and we have a commercial agreement, you actually get the source code so you can customize, extend the product, and you actually own your customizations and changes that you're doing to the platform. So that's a great selling point on why our tools are a bit more flexible and better. And we rely on PHP and Symfony. Symfony is the framework we're actually using. And like it was mentioned before, since we already have our product ORO CRM on the market, we actually have built-in CRM into our B2b e-commerce platform, eCommerce. So it comes already with a fully featured, very flexible CRM built in and integrated with our eCommerce product.
Very good. Thanks, Yoav. Yeah, we started working with ORO last year in 2016. It's a great partnership, good company to work for. But let's get right into the real reason people are attending this webinar, because they want to learn about e-commerce, business-to-business e-commerce. So that's different. So Yoav, the question I'm going to ask you in just a second, just a moment, is tell me about B2B e-commerce and why it's different from B2C. But first, I want to look at some of these statistics on the right-hand side. This is a huge marketplace, a huge marketplace. So all of my friends in the audience today paying attention here, this is, as you know, you do a lot of business through e-com, or you're hoping to do a lot of business through e-com. A lot of people are already doing $12 trillion. That incorporates EDI and lots of other things. But straight e-com is growing dramatically. You can see some of these other statistics there. The last one, 73% of all e-com traffic originates from a Google search. Can you believe that? So if you're not, people go to Google and man, they're jumping straight to an e-com search. So if you're not taking advantage of that, whether you're B2B or B2C, then you're missing out on something. So Yoav, here's my question as promised. Tell us the difference between B2B and B2C e-commerce, please.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind, just quickly before we jump into answering fully that question, just to touch on the points that you just mentioned and the stats, we actually, the reason we created eCommerce was because we were working with Magento, which we designed to be a B2C application, our e-commerce application, and then we started getting more and more of these B2B companies that are actually selling to other companies that want to move online. So they wanted to move this operation online. Like you said, the stats show that online commerce is the place to start interacting when it comes to commerce. And if you don't have it, you're going to lose. So the idea of us seeing that more and more merchants were trying and looking for a product that will work for them as a B2B e-commerce platform is what kind of it reinforced our idea of building this. And the biggest differences, and like you said, a lot of them came and looked to go online, and what they found was B2C applications that they could find, and they tried to kind of repurpose them to their needs. And initially it looks very similar. You need maybe a catalog online, you need maybe some kind of what we call shopping cart in the B2C world, and then everything else they thought they can get away with. But it ended up that it doesn't work. The B2C space is completely different when it comes to selling online to other companies. And if we just differentiate the kind of three use cases that we solve with eCommerce and what B2B companies need when they sell online is what we call the self-serve model, first of all. So that means that as a company, you might have a website, you might even be transacting with consumers, so you're doing already B2C, but then a company wants to start buying from your website. And that's what we call kind of the self-serve model. And if you think this is not something you should invest in, well, Amazon for Business was launched last year. So Amazon looks at this market as a huge opportunity, having businesses shop as consumers online. So this kind of self-serve model is very, very important. But again, it's not something you can just get away with running on a B2C e-commerce platform. So why is it different? Well, because companies that shop online need to have multiple users. They have to be able to manage those users under a single account, maybe with different permissions, maybe with budgets, maybe with different restrictions on what they can order, and maybe even how the people use and interact with your website. So that's the self-serve model. That's where we're allowing companies to buy from your website as a company and not as an individual. The second one is
you make a good point there, and I'm going to kind of shift my, excuse me for interrupting, but I want to shift the question now. You started talking about the self-serve model and the catalog. So elaborate for me, what sorts of things do you want to digitize? You kind of started talking about that, and maybe that's where you were going next, but elaborate on the things you're putting into this store. What are you digitizing?
Well, so all the interaction, and that's probably also to do with the second point, which we call the buyer-seller interaction, but all the interaction between companies, like everything else we're doing in our lives, is moving to online and to the digital format, right? So the B2B traditionally kept on kind of lagging behind all that, so they were interacting through what we call pen and paper and maybe phone calls. If they're really advanced, maybe emails, right? But it started, even fax machines, right? We still see fax machines around in this industry. But what we are trying to do is move all that processes online. So that goes from not only having to send a brochure with your products, having your products online, searchable. So SEO is search engine optimization is really important for companies to be found today. We know that a lot of buyers today do their research online, like everything else in their life, right? They used to go to Google, search for what they need. So when it comes to buying for their company, they will do the same thing. So it's extremely important that your catalog is digital and online and found by search engines and indexed by search engines. So that's extremely important. Then when it comes to actually pricing, which is a big thing in B2B, how do you actually manage pricing and how do you offer multiple prices to different customers? That's a big issue when it comes to having your catalog online. Maybe because you have channel conflict as a B2B merchant, you don't even want to publish your prices online. So when your catalog is indexed, it cannot be indexed with prices, for example. So all this control of how you take it online, how you put it there so search indexes work and find your products, how you display pricing to your customers is extremely important.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think just touching the tip of the iceberg, and we'll get a lot of the demo, I think a very important one is the whole buyer-seller interaction. So this whole quote-to-order process, taking that online. Again, it's the old way is picking up the phone, talking for 10 minutes about how the grandchildren and children are doing in Little League, etc. But today, people want to be efficient, right? They want to interact online. They want to open multiple quotes, maybe interact with the website and have multiple projects that they work on as a buyer, maybe work across different websites, different brands, get quotes from different brands that can produce the same thing, and get those quotes compared and act on this whole process to complete in self-serve is to create these kind of process around it and making sure that they're efficient. And you as a seller, that's the way you'll have to compete with your competitors. If your competitors start offering that, buyers will prefer buying in that way versus picking up the phone and stuff like that. So again,
that is very good.
Yeah, those are like just the starting points, I think. I
know there's so much more. There's so much more, but what I find really unique, and we start off with B2B customers. We've got so many B2B customers. They want to keep different price books, different discount structures for various for their customers, and that's something that ORO can do that other e-commerce tools cannot. Keeping a price book for your Northeastern customers or for your specifically identified buyers. But let's get right into it. Let's start showing the product. Michael, are you ready to show us the product here?
Absolutely. Can you just make me a presenter, please?
I will be happy to. You all have any? I'm making Michael a presenter. If you want to
sure, I'll
say
just
any
say
final words
books
before Michael takes over.
Yeah, so you were absolutely right. Price books and price lists are kind of the heart of a B2B e-commerce application. You'll have to manage multiple prices, sometimes millions and millions of permutations of those prices for your customers, and that's something that is extremely important. So now we can see it in the demo.
Yeah. All right, Michael, take it away. Michael Besilov, thank you very much for helping us out with this. Excited to see it.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here actually and to show the product to everyone who is on the call now. I'm really glad that you are with us today. And let me actually start maybe with actually showing you in action some of the points that you have and Kevin already mentioned before. And one of them is that in order for the B2B business to be present online, it's just not enough to kind of upload Excel's file online and make them available, or just list your products on some others websites, suppliers' website. What you need to do is you need to present the experience that the customers will enjoy on the front end, but at the same time, as you have mentioned, most of the B2C focused e-commerce platforms today, they unfortunately do not have all the features that B2B customers may need, because they do not shop for themselves only. They still want the same convenience they have when they buy for themselves, making their personal purchases, but they also want to have the tools that would allow them to buy from you on behalf of their company, and this is what we are trying to solve here at ORO. So and sorry, I'm probably talking a little bit more than I should. Let me actually show you something that we have. So the experience on the front end that what we see now is just a default out-of-the-box theme in ORO Commerce. It can be easily customized. So based on the design requirements that you have, based on your brand identity, the storefront and theme can be easily customized to make the products look and work in the way that you would like them to be, and the way that customers want them to be. Also, it's possible to customize the experience further by basically making different for different customers, different customer groups, or even making different in case if you are selling different products. So for example, if you are selling something that has like really nice pictures, and it will be easier for your customers to search for the products using this kind of more graphical navigation, then we can use, for example, this view, right? If, for example, you would like to present more details about the products in order to simplify kind of improve the experience of the customers searching for the products so they can see more details right away, you can use this view, right? And in case if you just want to, like, in one of the categories on your website you have just some kind of supplies, right, and some kind of nuts and bolts that do not really need to have all that information, and if you would like your customers just to be able to quickly scan through the list of the items and add them to their order, this is also what we can do. And again, these are just 3 examples, and it's up to you to decide, okay, like what is actually the view that my customers will enjoy, what is the amount of information that would be right for them when they are searching for the products, when they are browsing my website. Then also a few examples of the actual B2B tools that we have. So we know that B2B customers often they need to work on kind of large orders, and you can just easily imagine the situation when you work on an order with, let's say, hundreds of line items, right? And then your boss or somebody else comes in and they ask you to quickly place a different order because some supplier just ran out of the stock and they need to quickly do that. So ORO Commerce supports ability to work on multiple orders simultaneously right out of the box. And again, this feature can be called differently. It can be called shopping lists, saved shopping carts. We know that in some industries, merchants and customers call it like projects, bills of materials. Again, labeling probably doesn't matter much, and especially it can be changed, but the idea here is the same. The customer should be able to work on multiple orders, and whenever they see whenever they see product information on the storefront, and they should be able to decide, okay, do I want to add this product to my current order, order? Do I want to add it to one of other open orders that I'm currently working on? Or maybe I just need at this time to create a new order and start working on the new order. So that's what we do. Whenever customer sees a product, they can decide where they want to add the product to. Then the other tool that again will, I believe, be especially helpful in B2B is for the customers who know exactly what they want to order, because like if they are placing this recurrent order, so maybe they just they could be very, very familiar with your catalog, with what you offer them. So if they know exactly what they want to order, they can just use the quick order form. They can search for products by using the SKUs, the manufacturer numbers. They just use by basically any attribute that you want them to be able to use on this form. They can quickly add those products to the form. They can specify the quantities. They can add multiple items to the list, and we can even do the things like, okay, if maybe they have an email from somebody and they just want to copy paste the content of that email in this form on the right, we can also parse that content and again add those products here on this form. And also if they want to, let's say if they have a purchase list or bill of materials or a project list in the Excel file format or in other formats, they can just also import that file here on this form. They can add more rows, and right from this page they can just either start the checkout process, they can add them to one of their open orders, create a new order, or they can request a quote from you if that's the functionality that you enabled on the storefront and for them. Yoav and Kevin also mentioned importance of personalization of the catalog, because we understand that in some industries, like we may have like catalogs that have like hundreds of thousands of of products, and it's not necessarily what each of the customers want to do, because if you are selling to some specific organization, they may not need to see like everything, all the brands. Maybe what they need just a bunch of brands that they usually buy, or just products in some specific category. And that's what our catalog personalization tools allow you to do. So you can effectively manage visibility of the products or categories of the products to specific customer groups, because maybe your B2B buyers do not need to see something that B2C buyers need to see, or vice versa, or maybe some specific customer group you would like to show them a category with free samples or free educational or presentational materials and so on. And also, as Kevin mentioned, a lot of traffic to e-commerce websites, to B2B e-commerce websites, including, comes from Google nowadays, right? So what becomes important is the ability to do all that search engine optimization, right? To provide the most relevant description in the way that the search engine, Google, and others will be able to parse it effectively. And also, what makes it also unique in B2B, that we often even need to personalize, actually, to choose what to show to the customer based on the customer group. So for example, for your smaller buyers, maybe you would just show the products in the, let's say, architectural floodlighting category as is, right? But maybe then for like your wholesale customers, instead of just showing the products from that category, you would just like to show a specific landing page that you created for them, that maybe it will contain additional information. And then maybe for some other group or some other customer, you would like to show even more relevant, more specialized content. Then another thing that Yoav mentioned previously was ability to manage pricing. And we all know how complex pricing strategies, price management can be in B2B, because you have like all types of pricing here. You can sell differently for different prices to different customer groups. You can have negotiated pricing with specific customers. You can have contract pricing for the duration of the contracts, and a lot of different things. So this is what we provide, what we offer. You can have as many price lists as necessary in the system. You can structure the work with pricing in the way that works for your sales team, like maybe same people responsible for pricing for the entire catalog, maybe just different people or different teams responsible for price management for separate section of catalog. Again, like we support all these ways, and this is what you can do. In case if you, for example, sell internationally, we can also support multiple currencies. We support multiple units of sale. That's, for example, when the same product is sold as individual items, as sets, as boxes, crates, containers, and so on. We support tier pricing. You can manage that easily as well. And also we support two actually, or a combination of two modes. So you can obviously override pricing manually, especially, for example, if you negotiated the price with customer, but you can also put a lot of heavy lifting, make the system do this job for you. So you can basically specify the price calculation formulas using the purchase price or manufacturing cost, and then factor in your margin, factor in some discounts for specific groups of customers, and then you can basically create this kind of different sets of price lists, like default price list that would be based, let's say, only on purchase price. Then wholesale price list would just add additional discounts on the level of the larger quantity tiers and so on. So again, a lot of flexibility here. And also, just shortly, let me say that we are also open-minded in ORO, so we understand that some of the businesses may not necessarily need ORO do everything for them. So we are perfectly fine and happy if, for example, you have your ERP application or warehouse management application to do those functions for you. So then you do not have to use that specific piece of ORO. You can just disable it. Your team does not even need to see it, and then all the data would just come from your ERP. So that works for us as well. We have flexible APIs and a lot of integration options available. Then we are talking about customers and B2B, and the way that ORO allows you to see them, to manage with them, to interact with them. And now we are actually in the, as you can see, in the backend part of the application. So again, a lot of flexibility here. We do not limit you in any way how you want the information of your customers to be presented in the system. You can create as many separate accounts for different teams, divisions of your customers, local branches, and so on. So as long as you want to work with that specific, let's say, bunch of people on the bunch of buyers on the customer side, you can create a separate account for them. Maybe that account would have different payment terms with them. Maybe you would just create a separate price list that would be available to that group. Or maybe if it's like some specific local branch in a different country, maybe you just do not sell all the products to that country. Maybe some of the items cannot be exported, and then you would just kind of limit visibility of some items to that specific group. So again, you can create as many accounts as necessary, structure them in the way you want, and you can also flexibly manage permissions of what your customers can do. So for example, you can say, okay, like maybe people in that specific branch of my customer, maybe my customer, like they want me to limit what they can see and do, but they still want kind of to retain the control of the people, of the users assigned on the level of company headquarters, and they want us to allow those people to be able to oversee all activity, everything that their users do in the system, like all the orders they place, all the quotes they receive, be able to control the budgets, see the spends, and so on. Another interesting thing is that we also support is probably would help a lot to the businesses who work with large organizations, who sell to large organizations, is that some of the customer account management functions can actually be delegated to the customers themselves, right? So here I'm again switched back to the storefront, and on the storefront I'm sent in as a user who has been given full administrative permissions in her account. And full in this case means that she can enable, she can add a new logins, new people on her team to the account. She can enable, disable them as necessary. She can manage their roles and permissions. And now let's take a quick look at actually the interaction between buyer and the seller. And as you have mentioned, like we see that all of that gradually is shifting to be online. But still, we have these request a quote forms and other forms, or contact us form, request price forms on the storefront, and that you can use in any combination you want. So your buyers can request pricing for you. Like if you enable the target pricing functionality, they can specify like what is the price they are looking for. They can add notes, and basically whenever you receive that request submitted online, the people, the salespeople that you assigned to handle those that account or those group of accounts, they will receive appropriate notifications by email. They will see them in the system. They will be able to actually open that request and start working from that request on creating a quote or proposal to your customer. But also we are not limiting that in the sense, okay, like if maybe you just receive the call from your customer, or maybe you now on a trade show and talking to a customer, and if you want to create a quote for them, that's also fine with us. You can just start creation of the quote from scratch. You would fill in all the information necessary. You would include the products that you want to sell, like get the prices. If you have the permission, you would be able to override the pricing and offer better deals to your customers. And if you have customer, for example, delivery address on file, if it's an existing customer, or if it just has been provided, you can also quote shipping, and we have a lot of tools that allow you to do that flexibly. And all that interaction that is happening with the customer, we keep track of that interaction in the system. So for example, here you can see, okay, like this is an account of some person or a company, and while we see all the interactions that happened with them, we see all the email exchange that was in regards to specific orders, specific requests, and again as general requests. We also have the functionality and some of the integrations with call, so you can record the calls in the system, and you can see the notes, that internal notes, internal messages that your team may be adding or exchanging in regards to that specific customer account. Also, you have mentioned about a lot of the flexibility, required flexibility that businesses, the sellers are facing, because it really matters who you sell to, right? Because different people require different experience on the storefront, and that's also actually true for your team, for your own employees, because you may have different teams responsible for different sales territories, and the way, or responsible for different customer groups, and the way they work with VIP customers, right, may be very different from the way they work with other folks. So OROCommerce allows, or actually gives the tool, we call it workflow engine, and this is the tool that allows you to represent all those different business processes, configure them, and have them in the system. So basically any interaction with the system, be it customer, buyer interacting with your system on the storefront end, or your own team working with the orders, quotes, requests, or managing accounts, all that can be easily and flexibly customized based on your requirements. So you can have multiple order fulfillment flows, or quote request handling flows based on who submitted the request or what they're asking for, right? And here on the screen, I, for example, have opened the alternative checkout flow that is made available on the storefront and for only some of the customers, right? So most of your customers, maybe they would just go through the standard checkout experience through billing address, shipping method, payment method, review order, submit an order. But some of your customers may actually ask you, okay, we have a lot of different people, and we would like all orders exceeding, let's say, $5,000, $10,000 to be reviewed and approved by department managers before actually an order gets submitted to you, and you can do that. You can enable those alternative flows for them. And also in the back office side, if you are doing, for example, custom manufacturing, if you have specific ways to deal with orders, with requests the customers submit, you can also enable workflows, configure workflows for the back office part of the application as well. And one more point that I would like to mention that has not probably been mentioned before on today's call is ability to do all those things on the go, be it your buyers shopping from you on the storefront and on the website, and be it your team actually attending the trade shows or maybe visiting the customers. So it's really important that all the information that your customers or you can see in the system, all the interactions you can have in the systems, that they will also work on the mobile, be it iPads, different tablets, tablet devices with touch screens, or even on the phone, right? We understand that it's probably not the best to work on a large order, on a quote, doing from the phone, but if it's your only option, if, for example, you are flying back from the trade show and your customer is asking you to give them the quote, you still can do that. So we support all that mobile responsive themes, so you can do that, and you can interact with the system, and your buyers can interact with the system on the go as well. So this actually concludes the demo part. So Kevin, please take it from here. Thank you, everyone.
That is great. We did have a bunch of questions. I do want to honor our time commitment. We want to keep this brief for our attendees, but we do have a bunch of really good questions. So here's a question for you, Michael. Workflow. One customer is asking about workflow, and so Fabrice, I'm not sure. When you say how deep can the workflow go? How deeply editable is the workflow? So maybe, Michael, you can show us a bit more about workflow and how quote-unquote deep it could go.
There are multiple levels of the workflow configuration, and how deep each of the levels go actually depends on what you, which of the levels of workflow configuration you need to use depends on what you want to do. So for example, most of the things like that users do in the system, like when, for example, I'm working with an order as a salesperson, right, or a person responsible for the fulfillment, like almost everything that I need to do, like all the screens, additional information that they need to provide, like all the buttons that should be available to them, all the different statuses, assignments, and so on. Most of that can be configured through the UI configurator, like the one that you see now on the screen. Then we also have another level, and that would be the level like an integration or implementation partner. That's somebody who would have a developer to do that, and they would do that through editing of the configuration file, and that's to cover some kind of more advanced things, like for example for the alternative checkout experience customization, maybe they need to add some custom like styling or JavaScript interactions on the page, so that would be editing of workflow configuration file. And then the next level, sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then the next most advanced level would be from those configurations files. It's possible to use actually any custom code. So, for example, if you are building a workflow, and in that workflow, at some kind of stage after some process, there needs to be an API call made to external system, like to your ERP system, to update inventory availability or to request price, or maybe you need to submit an outgoing purchase order to your supplier. So all that can be done with the kind of custom PHP code edit there to make those API calls to get those interactions and automation.
All right, very good, Michael. So we do have a couple more questions that we can talk about, and while we're talking about that, Kat Stone is going to take control and post some poll questions for our audience to answer. But while the poll questions are up, we're going to ask a couple more questions, and Michael, you and I can answer them. So here's a really good question, high level, about the ORO roadmap. Do you have an intention to create an ORO commerce marketplace? I think there already is one to some degree, right?
Yes, that's right. So we have an ORO marketplace, and we actually have, besides ORO Commerce, we have a few more products. So the extension developers, the system integrators, and other companies, they can list their extensions, modules, be them free or for sale. They can list on that marketplace. So our merchants, users of our products, can add them to their installations.
Okay, yeah, very good.
Yeah. And we also support the other marketplace, which is we're already in process with working with some companies on releasing a B2b marketplace as well for themselves.
That is great. Another question while the poll is ongoing. What payments methods are currently available in ORO Commerce?
So in ORO Commerce 1.0 that has been released in January, we added support for payment integrations through PayPal to handle credit card payments, as well as there is integration, for example, with PayPal PayFlow Gateway, which allows you to work directly with larger payment processing companies in US in case if you have your own merchants accounts with them. Also, for the next release, we are working on a couple of more payment integrations that would also be they are available for the US customers, but also they would allow some of the European merchants to use them. And basically the full list, I believe, can be found on our website, and the ones that are coming that will be available in the next releases, we also have them published in the, I guess, in the roadmap section on the website as well.
All right, very good. Very good. Here's our last question. This is one of my favorites because I've heard this quite a bit. This comes from Aaron. Aaron's wondering about multiple storefronts. I know the answer, but I'm going to let my colleagues over at ORO answer this because you will answer it so much more eloquently than I. Talk to us about multiple storefronts, and that's pretty common in the B2B world, wanting to have multiple storefronts.
Yeah, that's right. So we support it. Yes,
yeah,
yes,
sorry.
we support it out of the box, so you can have multiple storefront ends, multiple websites being managed from the same back office, run on the same EuroCommerce installation, and it's not even limited to like different brands. So you can have like different storefront ends for different brands. You can have different storefront ends for different geographies, right? Because like your European customers, they may need to see some different products, and you can also have different websites, even going kind of out of the space of B2B, because like if you are doing B2B sales, maybe if you sell to smaller companies like contractors of various kinds, they would expect really to have a B2C-like experience. So effectively you can have multiple B2B store front ends and B2C store front ends as necessary running on the same EuroCommerce installation, and we allow you through configuration to enable and disable entire features, like for example multiple shopping lists or quotes or quick order form. You can just simply uncheck checkboxes in the system config, and those features will be hidden, will not be shown on that specific storefront that you want to run.
And I'm sorry, I just wanted to give a complete answer about the payment gateway. So just to finish that, where the ones that Michael listed are what we have out of the box, but through our system integrators, to add any of the payment options that you are using right now is almost a straightforward kind of implementation. We have documentation for that, and it's completely extendable. So the payment to integrate to any payment gateway is completely doable through our system integrators like BrainSell.
Yeah, that's great. Very good. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Like I said, I want to honor our time commitment. We didn't want to go past 2:45 East Coast time because I know our audience's time is valuable. So with that, I am going to say thank you very much to my colleagues over at ORO. It's always great working with you, and it's wonderful to have you on this webinar and to educate our audience about B2B e-commerce. So thank you very much for your help, Yoav and Michael.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. And to the folks in our audience, we'll be following up with you personally. If you've got, I know there's some questions we didn't get to. We're going to follow up with you individually. And if there's ever anything we can do to help, you know how to find us, brainsell.net, BRAINSELL.net. So we're going to have more. We're going to have more webinars on e-commerce. We're going to have more webinars on e-commerce. So stay tuned. Watch our website. We're going to get more in depth with each one. We realize it's a kind of a growth process for people who are new to e-commerce. These e-commerce webinars will be recorded, and they are going to be on our website for viewing later. So, Kat, thank you for your help. Once again, thank you to the entire audience who's joined us. Watch the website for the recording.
I will be emailing out those recordings and the slide deck as well. And again, Kevin, myself, or someone from ORO will be getting back to you directly regarding the questions that we didn't get to. But again, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you, and we hope to see you at our next webinar.